There's so many variables that happen. I've watched too many law enforcement guys get out of the car, run after a bad guy, and they end up throwing their AR on the ground because they have no place to put it. This is an extremely important part of your setup to keep retention of your firearm. I don't want anybody else having this thing, and I certainly don't want it sitting on the ground. I've never been on an operation where I'm like, oh, let me just set my gun down over here and I'm gonna go do something else. That's never been the case.
The information in this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. Our informational content cannot address all dangerous situations and cannot guarantee your survival or prevent injuries when the unexpected happens. The decision to carry a firearm, either for recreation or for personal defense, carries the risk and potential for injury and or death. Therefore, it is advised that you seek out and acquire proper training before using a firearm or any firearm-related product.
What are some self-defense techniques?
What would happen if there was a global internet outage?
What should I do if I hear shots ringing out?
Or what I should do if there's a major terrorist attack?
What should I have? What's the best?
What should I do?
What does that look like?
What would you recommend? Is there anything I could do?
All right, guys, welcome back to Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. We've been getting topics lately, especially with the standpoint of gear. And this is a subject that never gets old, especially during the holiday season where people are looking to buy things for everybody else. But what do we do for a self-defense rifle? What are we doing with a battle rifle? I'm gonna talk about the top things that you need in order to set yourself up for success with these items. It is not just as simple as going out to the store and picking up an AR and taking it home and you're done. There's more to it. And I'm gonna name them in order of priority because if you're thinking a certain way or you just need a quick reset, especially if you're a new shooter or you're new to firearms, you know, that's why the beautiful thing about the Second Amendment is you can go and pick up a firearm. You should be unencumbered to do that. You should have the ability and the inalienable right to self-defense. But there is responsibility that comes along with that. So what I want to do is break that down for you guys, that question of what do I need? If I go to the store and I buy a firearm or a self-defense gun or a home defense gun, what are the top things that I need? Number one thing. Of course, we can sit here and talk about mindset and everything else that's going to set the foundation, faith and everything else. But the top thing that's tangible for you guys that you really need to take ownership in is the training. You can go get a high level of training before you even put your hand on a gun. It's the same thing I talk about with people that show up to combatives. Do you know how to throw a 1, 2, 3, a left hook, a right hook, a liver shot? Those are things that you can do on your own before you even go to the gym. And there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of tools you guys can utilize. We have modules on our website. There's other guys doing online training out there. You can go in person. And you can get the feel for what you're doing from a training perspective before you even go purchase a firearm. That is the number one thing I'm going to tell you guys to do. This is the first part of two parts, one of which we're going to put together a self-defense setup. Next one's going to be an everyday carry. But if I'm focusing on just the firearm that I'm going to keep in my home, that I'm going to rely on, I want to get good, solid training with it. Now that we get the baseline set with training, the next part is getting a good, reliable firearm, a solid platform. This is where I always say, you know, buying cheap is not the right route. You know, buying the best that you can possibly afford within your budget, even if you have to stretch yourself, this is a life-saving and taking device. We don't want to skimp on dollars when it comes to quality. I know there's a lot of options out there. The firearms market has exploded over the last 5 years, and there's a lot of good brands out there to take advantage of. If it looks cheap, if it feels cheap, it probably is cheap. And I would recommend that you go look. I mean, it's not hard to say, hey, what are the top five reliable firearms out there? What's the top 5 reliable self-defense guns or ARs out there on the market? Buy a reliable platform. Hopefully, within your training and the reps that you've been getting, you're getting an idea of what to do with what you end up purchasing. That way you don't go to the store and say, well, I don't know what this lever does and I don't know what that lever does and where's the safety. I mean, there really is no excuse. You can go buy an airsoft gun these days that look and feel exactly like a real gun. So why go spend $1,000 on an AR and not know what you're doing with it when you could have gotten really good reps with the airsoft gun. You know, albeit there's definitely differences and contrasts, but I want you guys to make sure that you're putting that level of effort into it before you go actually buy the firearm. There's always context and there's always variables to that, but it's the priority that I'm giving it to you. Make sure you have good training and make sure you purchase a solid firearm. The next thing is going to be proper and extra ammo. What you feed the gun is going to be really, really important. What are you doing with the ammo? What are you expecting it to do? How reliable is it? You know, if the ammo is not reliable, well then neither is your firearm. Those two things coincide together. In the order of priority of having good training, a good platform to be able to trust, and then feeding it with the right ammo. That is going to be a critical thing for both everyday carry and your self-defense gun to set yourself up for success. With those three things, I can take any platform and be effective. You know, are there features that I wish I had? Yes, but could I strip all of this off, take the optic off, take the backup sights off, and could I still shoot 100%? Yes. I can't do that without ammo. I can put all the fancy optics on here that I want. If I don't have ammo, the gun is not worth anything. It's useless. So make sure that you're researching what your goal is and understanding, well, what you want your ammo to do. If I'm going hunting, I'm going to look up hunting loads. If I'm going to be carrying my gun every day for self-defense, I'm going to carry a self-defense round that's going to expand quickly and not go through and penetrate. I don't want to use ball ammo that I use on the range, the cheap ball ammo, and stuff that into my everyday carry gun. Hopefully you get my point there. The next thing is backup sights or open sights. Before I start putting lasers, red dots, optics, I just want basic iron sights. When I went to sniper school, the first thing that we did was made sure that we were proficient at open iron sights. That expanded my mind and my discipline with those basic things so much, where for me now, it doesn't really make much sense not to have those things. The battery can go out in this, the screen can crack, the optic can fail, but those iron sights are extremely durable. And I know I've ran into tier 1 guys in my career that were like, you don't need backup sights. This thing's gonna be good. It does its job. And I think it's a poor excuse. And I think it's a level of complacency that's not realistic. You know, these backup sights are gonna do their job way better and way longer and way more proficiently than any other red dot out there. So if you have the opportunity to do it, I highly recommend getting backup sights, iron sights on your AR, on your self-defense rifle, so they are always there when you need them. And again, it doesn't really do you any good if they're not sighted in. Can you point shoot? Sure. But take the time and effort. Anybody that's ever trained with me before, any private training I've ever done or any elite training I've ever done, guys know that we spend our whole first day just making sure that we're intimate with our firearm. I know exactly how it's functioning. I know exactly where it's sighted into, and I know it like the back of my hand. Those are, again, the order of priority of how I want you guys to understand what's most important. Because if you're skipping steps and you're not following me so far, you're probably getting distracted with something that doesn't matter. Let go of the $800 optic and go sight your rifle in. That's the type of thing that I want to convey here for all you guys that are really getting into firearms, or even a guy that just needs a reminder. Okay. The next thing in order of priority is the proper optic, the proper sight, the proper red dot. What's your goal? While a backup sight covers a lot of different variables, I want to know what your goal is. The first thing I'm going to do with you when I'm training with you is ask you, what's the purpose of the firearm that you're purchasing? What's your goal with it? After I identify that, I'm going to say, okay, well, let's reverse engineer that and figure out what optic you need. If this is strictly a self-defense gun that I'm using in my home, with however many bedrooms and bathrooms, and my kids are in some rooms, and my wife and I are in one room, dogs are in another, that's a clearance scenario. That's an assaulter, clearance, self-defense, home defense scenario. I want a red dot all day long. I want to quickly acquisition and quickly transition from target to target and spaces in the room. I need a wide open field of view. I want a very quick reference, whether it's low light or really bright outside. It needs to transition and adapt very quickly. That's just one example. I can go down a rabbit hole with which optic to pick. But I guess to contrast that, because I always like to at least have something to think about, I've got guys out there that own ranches. and they're gonna know you're even next to their house before you even get there. They're not worried about clearing their room. They're worried about taking a 600-yard shot. So the optics are gonna look a little different on that gun than it is to this gun. So your why and your purpose of how you're setting this up are really, really important. So I want you to keep that in mind as you're setting your gun up and what you're doing with it. The context of what you're doing with it is really, really important. Okay, the next thing for you guys is a sling, especially if you're relying on this thing for self-defense. There's so many variables that happen. I've watched too many law enforcement guys get out of the car, run after a bad guy, and they end up throwing their AR on the ground because they have no place to put it. This is an extremely important part of your setup to keep retention of your firearm. I don't want anybody else having this thing, and I certainly don't want it sitting on the ground. I've never been on an operation where I'm like, oh, let me just set my gun down over here and I'm gonna go do something else. That's never been the case. This is something that you are responsible for. You've got to keep track of it, and this is a really important way to do it. And again, just like knowing your gear, what it's going to do for you, you've got to be able to have this thing so it's solid, it's functional. You're not questioning whether this thing's going to perform or not. You know, just a simple example of this is a self-defense gun, but the sling is highly adaptable. If I need to loosen this, if I have more gear on, I can. If I want to transition this to a longer setup, I can. That way I can throw it over my shoulder. Now I can climb. Those are really important things to me, and I always look for that in a sling so I can adapt very quickly. So again, what's the context of what you guys think you're gonna need it for? Regardless if you're not climbing or getting dynamic, I still think that once your gun's up and running, say somebody kicks your door in the middle of the night, you take a couple of shots, it's a bad guy, your sling's hanging there, you haven't got the time to put it around your neck yet, but the second you have the opportunity to, boom, that thing goes over. I don't want it to get pulled away from me, taken away, or anything that's gonna happen where I lose control of that life-saving device. And again, that order of priority here is the adaptability it offers me. You know, if I pull this thing out, I rack it, however the setup is, again, what's your setup in your home? If you have children, I hope you're not leaving it out. I hope you're not putting it somewhere where it's accessible to kids that don't know the difference between a real and a fake firearm. Again, that's what I wanted to end with you guys, is understanding that. There's a couple of accessories that you guys need to know that are important. They're not critical, you don't need them in a self-defense scenario, but they are really important. So again, if I had to throw this on or use this, I could end up, when the opportunity presents itself, throw it over my neck, throw it over my arm, and I'm in a much better position with solid retention. All right, guys, this episode of Dangerous Questions is brought to you by MTNTOUGH, the fitness app. These guys have been crushing, and honestly, I'm stoked to have their support. They've been doing some amazing things, and they are doing a deal right now, especially during the holidays, and everybody has their own way of looking at things. But ultimately, we need to stay disciplined, and this is a great way to do it. The MTNTOUGH app is your battlefield for building mental toughness and physical strength. This isn't just a workout program, it's a mission to forge you into a high-performing athlete, prepared for whatever comes next. MTNTOUGH is so confident in this program that they're offering you a full year on the app for just $120 by using code CYBER50 at MTNTOUGH.com. That breaks down to just 33 cents a day. The last thing, the last major component that I think is important, but again, it's not on the top of my list, this is still in order of priority, is a good functioning light, a good weapon light. Most of the time, again, if you can't see them, they can't see you, and vice versa. But there are going to be critical scenarios like, man, I really wish I had more visibility of what's going on here. And then that ends up going down a whole nother road with training with it, understanding how to use light to your advantage, how it could be a disadvantage. You know, there's great teachers out there that explain all this in detail. The purpose of this video is just to understand your level of priority. Are you going out to buy a weapon light and investing in that before you buy a good optic? Are you trying to put a laser on before you got backup sights? You see my point. Go through this list, go through this video, keep this thing stored, send it to people that might be confused about their setup. That way they can have that order of priority and know where they stand and what they should be investing in first. Okay, ending this, I'm talking about the other accessories that I think are very critical. Not to the success of you being able to fight off a scenario, but other things in your home. And that's a way to lock it up, a safe, something to lock this thing down. Even if you have visitors or somebody that might be curious, if you have any children coming into your home whatsoever, there's no exceptions to this, guys. If you haven't done something to secure your firearms, honestly, shame on you, because it sucks to have people out there that aren't taking this seriously and really putting the level of effort that they should be, locking their firearms up and keeping them away from children. It's easy to go access a safe. I'd rather take 30 seconds to have to do that in a life-threatening scenario than have one of my kids access it when I'm not home at the wrong time. You've got to be thinking that way. So once you get everything set up, you should also be thinking about, how am I securing this? How am I accessing it? Am I training that way? And does everybody in the house understand the way I'm doing it? Older son or wife or capable children or family members is kind of where I'm going with that. The next thing I think is probably really, really important is a travel case. You never know when you're going to be like, I want to go to the range. And I've seen people show up with some janky cases and some really oddball things. But at the end of the day, I want you guys to have something that you can throw it in really quickly, go sight your gun in, go travel. Maybe you even need to take a trip. You know, you don't want to be having to deal with that stuff last minute. I always have a case that I could lock my gun up with TSA approved locks. That way I am ready to go. So in a moment's notice, I know I can go to the range and I'm not going to draw a lot of attention to myself. You know, I don't put a bunch of stickers on my guns. I usually put like guitar stickers or something nonchalant that doesn't say, oh, that guy's got a gun. I'd rather them think I got a violin or something. And it's just one more layer of stuff that I can just avoid. I don't want to avoid anybody knowing that I have that capability, right? Always building that Iron Man capability without drawing attention to yourself. Send this to people that really need to hear it, guys. Again, if you chose to get into the firearms, if you chose to get into this lifestyle, this order of priority will help you invest in the right way, and it will really give you the ability to get what's needed first in a critical priority. I hope you guys got something out of this. I really do hope you share it with everybody in your contact list that's getting into firearms, or even that needs a little bit of a reminder, because it is critically important. Keep sending these questions in, guys. Any gear you want us to break down or anything like this, please let us know in the comments. Go check out crusheverything.com. We have a firearm safety video for rules, for modules, and all that stuff as well. This is Dangerous Questions, an Ironclad original. Thanks for all your support, guys, and God bless you. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
We don't just do the filmmaking. We do everything. We've taken a case study of over 30 projects that we've done over the past 15 years, and we've put together what we believe is the most effective and efficient content funnel for brands. They need content on a daily basis. They need to be talking to authentic end users. We want your team to bring its most challenging problems and allow us and our team to apply our proven methods to your brand to take it to another level.